Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Thank you for joining me, Dorothea, on Through an Orthodox Christian Lens. It is still August 10th, 2025. I actually have a story for you on the ZANGEZUR corridor issue. I'm going to share the perspective of the Iranian and Russian one on this peace deal between Azerbaijan and Armenia. Okay, so we're going to start with Iran. ZANGEZUR, a corridor to peace or gateway to new confrontation of big powers. Yeah, so as you can see in that picture, where that corridor is on the border of Iran and, of course, the other two countries, Armenia and Azerbaijan, and how this corridor makes a path from Baku to a town in Turkey. And you see the three flags there are the Chinese, the Russian, and the Iranian. Amid tectonic shifts in the geopolitical landscape of the South Caucasus, the ZANGEZUR corridor, a narrow land passage between Armenia and Azerbaijan, is rapidly transforming into a critical node in the global power struggle. What was once a localized dispute is now becoming a strategic lever in the broader East-West confrontation. The latest developments have sounded alarm bells in Moscow, Beijing, and Tehran as the United States inches closer to securing a direct foothold in this strategic region. On Friday, U.S. President Donald Trump hosted a trilateral summit at the White House with Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan and Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev, during which the two rival leaders signed a so-called peace agreement. The agreement includes a provision for a transit corridor linking Azerbaijan to Nakhchivan with development rights granted to the U.S., according to the White House. Iran's foreign ministry, in a statement after the deal was reached, cautioned against foreign interference in the strategic region while welcoming the cessation of hostilities between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Ali Akbar Velayati, senior advisor to the leader of the Islamic Revolution, that'd be Ayatollah Khomeini, issued a strong warning in an interview that Iran will block the establishment of an American corridor in the Caucasus region, regardless of Moscow's position. Because in the other article that I didn't finish reading, American troops can be placed there, and that's a great threat. Because we have so many bases in the Middle East, but we don't have one that close to Iran, as far as I mean, the one in Iraq, but not this one right off its border. He rejected the concept of the so-called ZANGEZUR corridor and warned that the corridor would become a graveyard for Donald Trump's mercenaries, rather than a route controlled by the U.S. president. While the so-called peace treaty may not last for too long, the central role of the White House and President Trump himself in it sends an unmistakable political message. The U.S. aims to become the primary architect of a new order in the South Caucasus, a role long dominated by Russia. There are also reports suggesting that the ZANGEZUR corridor in southern Armenia may be leased to a U.S. or Western security entity for 100 years. I heard 99, but here's they're saying 100 years. Now, we already know Russia has red lines with NATO being right on the border of Russia or stationed in Ukraine. Now we have this issue. It's the same kind of thing. Should this scenario materialize, it would mark the establishment of a Western security presence immediately adjacent to the Iran-Armenia border. The timing is particularly provocative, coming just weeks after unprovoked U.S. aggression against Iranian nuclear facilities, which was followed by the Iranian retaliation on a U.S. military base in Qatar. This is not merely a tactical maneuver, it is a strategic repositioning. From Washington's perspective, securing a presence in ZANGEZUR serves multiple aims: eroding the remnants of Russian influence in the post-Soviet space, provoking Iran, and, perhaps most crucially, undermining China's Belt and Road Initiative by disrupting the Middle Corridor. Indeed, The ZANGEZUR route is a critical segment of the so-called Middle Corridor that connects China to Europe via Central Asia and the South Caucasus. With control over this route, Washington could monitor, pressure, or even disrupt commercial flows at will, directly threatening China's long-term economic trajectory toward becoming the world's dominant power. From Tehran's vantage point, this evolving landscape constitutes a multi-dimensional threat. First, it reconfigures east-west trade routes in a way that sidelines Iran's historic role as a land bridge between Asia and Europe. Second, it raises the specter of surveillance or military installations near its northern borders. And third, it endangers the long-standing balanced relationship between Iran and Armenia. And of course, the West is always about disabling and chaos, which, again, that kind of stuff is from the evil one. Armenia, in turn, may benefit in the short term from American backing in its tense standoff with Azerbaijan. Yet, such a decision comes at a steep price: geopolitical dependence, loss of strategic balance, and deeper entanglement in great power rivalries. Russia's muted response is likely to last. Though entangled in parallel crises in Ukraine and the Middle East, Moscow cannot afford to relinquish the South Caucasus. In the coming months, more assertive responses, diplomatic or otherwise, may be expected. Iran has shown it can pursue a strategic mix of restraint and readiness in the face of provocations, deepening diplomatic outreach to both Yerevan and Baku, maintaining its role as a balanced regional actor, and preparing for a potential post-Russia order in the Caucasus are all essential components of Tehran's evolving regional policy. Yeah, Iran is in a difficult position. They're trying to encircle Iran. As you know, they want to take down Iran. The West does. Israel, U.S., NATO. And so Iran is, really vamping up for this and preparing. They have no other choice. Now, I'm going to go to what Moscow representative is saying. Russia and U.S. very far from détente. The Kremlin recently ditched self-imposed restrictions on intermediate range missiles to cool NATO hotheads, Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov has said. Ryabkov, I guess is how you say it. While Washington has recently moved toward fixing relations with Moscow, celebrations would be premature, says this minister. The diplomat added that Russia had earlier this month stopped abiding by a self-imposed moratorium on the deployment of intermediate-range missiles to cool hotheads in certain NATO capitals. While the 1987 Intermediate-Range Nuclear Forces Treaty between Moscow and Washington collapsed in 2019, Russia had nonetheless continued observing the restrictions. During his first term in office, President Trump pulled the U.S. out of the accord, citing supposed Russian violations, a claim the Kremlin has denied. In an interview with broadcaster Russia 1 on Sunday, Ryabkov observed that some sprouts of common sense are appearing in the dialogue with the U.S., which have been sorely lacking in recent months and years, yes. However, the use of the term détente would be wholly unwarranted at this point, he stressed. Speaking of Russia's decision to lift a self-imposed moratorium on the deployment of intermediate-range missiles, he argued that Moscow had no other choice in light of what the Americans and their allies, especially European warmongers, are undertaking. As you see here, on the left side here, Germany seeking 2,000-kilometer range U.S. missile launchers. So it goes with just this last quote of what he said. So there you go. You have these two countries that know what's going on. They know what this really means, as I knew that they would. And they're planning, they're going to be prepared. Again, this is just going on with what I had said the other day with the prophecies. And, Iran is feeling like, well, Russia is kind of quiet right now, but they got to do something. Well, we know Russia's going to do something, all right. I'm questioning, though, if it'll be under Putin, though, because under Elder Joseph's his 2001 interview, his prophecy of World War III, he basically said that Putin would not be around very long. So all of the time that where Russia has to occupy Ukraine and go down through Georgia and Armenia and Azerbaijan to get down to Turkey and all that, I wonder if that's going to be under somebody else, or if Putin is just going to get that bold and aggressive because he's been always so practical and conservative on how he does things and, kind of measured. I just don't know. We will see, won't we? So they know what the danger of this corridor rebalance is, of trying to take Russia out of the area as the main power there, and actually also the stabilizer. And of course, they don't want that. The West doesn't want stabilization, which is really sick. Chaos and destabilization, as I said, those are tools of the evil one. And the fact that my country is doing the evil one's work is very upsetting to me, against my Orthodox brethren in all these countries: Ukraine, Russia, Georgia, Romania. They had some issues with their elections. All the problems with that. They didn't want them putting in a friendly person to Russia in there, so they kicked him out. That was going on a lot last summer, I think it was, or fall. I'm trying to remember, 2024. But in Elder Joseph's prophecy, Romania will overthrow their government and will align with Russia. So somebody was asking about the 18 nations that he had mentioned. Well, that leaves Romania if you go with the NATO thing. Well, Romania is actually going to be, according to Elder Joseph, on Russia's side, which makes sense because it's another Orthodox Christian country. In any case, there's the response from the other side. I have a few other things on this meeting in Alaska and what it might mean and why it's Alaska, why it's being chosen, why Trump chose Alaska. I will do that video in a little bit. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for following my channel. And I hope you're having a blessed day, evening, morning. Until next time.